In this week's episode, we take a little bit of a turn, and rather than cover current events and things that are going on in the world, we dive into some upcoming movies and movie news. We've been needing something a little bit more lighthearted with all the heavy stuff going on, and I've been promising that we're going to get to some, nerdy and geeky stuff, and that time is now. It's time to talk, and this is Reformed Out Loud. Hello there, grace and peace to you from God the Father Almighty and Jesus Christ, His Son, our Lord. Welcome to the Reformed Out Loud podcast, the podcast where we will look at and discuss just about anything through a Reformed Christian worldview. I am your host, Mike, and thanks for tuning in. This is actually Thanksgiving week, so to you and to your family, to your friends and loved ones, a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving. I hope you will get to enjoy time with family and friends, and because the word is in it, to give thanksgiving to the Lord for everything that we have. It is thanks to Him that we have everything. He is our giver. He is our sustainer. And it's a good time to get together with family and really, just as the name implies, be thankful for what we have, however much or however little we have. No, I'm looking forward to gathering with some friends again this year, and it's going to be a fun time. I do want to apologize before we go any further for the state of the audio for last week's episode. So I realized I was having some issues, and I did some adjustments, and I thought it was this, and I thought it was that, and I was trying to fix it, and I finally just decided to just keep going with the show, and after I record it, I would just apologize, and I'll figure it out later. Well, I did the whole recording, it's an hour's worth of show, and I looked at the settings and realized the one thing I didn't check was what I was recording my voice through. And what I was recording through was the basic microphone that is attached to my laptop. So we're not talking top grade. I certainly felt the fool when I realized that when I connected the actual microphone that I'm recording through now, I never made sure that the setting was switched, so I was recording on my laptop microphone. So I apologize for the poor quality of the audio last week. I made sure to check this time that the setting was correct, and I'm recording through the proper microphone this time. So this week should hopefully sound a little bit better. I mean, it still has my voice, so I can only do so much. But thank you for for your patience with last week's audio. So, like I said in the intro, this week's going to be a little bit of a different show. So, we need something a little bit more lighthearted. There's been a lot of heavy news, a lot of stuff that we've been covering that is at times just depressing and discouraging. And I wanted to get something a little bit more fun, a little bit more light. If you don't know this about me, my journey into podcasting actually started some years ago with a Star Wars podcast. I produced a Star Wars podcast for about 2 years. It was not long after Star Wars The Force Awakens came out. And I think nerds and geeks were contractually obligated in that time to everyone have their own podcast. And I decided to jump on the bandwagon with that, and I started a podcast with one of my best friends who's also a huge Star Wars geek, and we did a podcast for a couple years, and it was a lot of fun. I love recording. I love interacting with listeners. I like the production aspect of it. I've always had fun doing it, and have been wanting to get back into it for a long time, and that's why I decided to start up Reformed Out Loud. And I said at the outset that this show would have, just some fun stuff. We would talk movies, could talk games, just pop culture, stuff like that. And I think it's about time we've done that. One of the reasons is, like I said, just want to do something a little bit more fun. The other reason is because this past week, I finally went back to work after being out of work for a month with a back injury. So I've been extremely tired and just have not had, I'm not going to say I haven't had the time. I just have not gotten around to researching stuff as deeply as I would like to be able to provide a quality show. And like I said, this is something I've been wanting to do, so we're kind of just going to talk movies on this episode. So the end of the year has become sort of around November and December has become its own movie season. Everyone talks about the summer blockbuster and, all the big movies that are coming out in summertime and everything. And I know Hollywood has gone through a lot of transformations and changes recently, particularly since the whole COVID thing. And but the November, December area started becoming kind of another movie season. And I feel like that kind of started a little bit when Star Wars Force Awakens released in December. And so we were really having blockbusters that were coming out at the end of the year. And so for me, when I think end of the year, I kind of think movies, in addition to the holidays and stuff. And we do have some movies coming up. I'll mix around my notes that I have here right now. I was going to save movie news until the end, but I'm gonna bump this up because I'd rather end with something different. So the only movie news I really want to talk about that I happened to see that caught my eye is because I'm still a huge Star Wars fan, and some people probably going to agree with this. Some people are probably going to disagree with this. That's fine. But I found that Rian Johnson, if you're not familiar with Rian Johnson, he has done movies like Looper, and he, as far as Star Wars goes, he did the movie The Last Jedi, which is my least favorite Star Wars film. So let's just be, I'll just be upfront with that. That is my, of all the Star Wars films, The Last Jedi is in last place for me. There's a lot of reasons I could list why. It was a visually stunning movie. I think the score was fantastic because John Williams can do no wrong with a movie score. But story-wise, continuity-wise, and everything, I know the sequels had a very high bar of expectations to clear, but I don't think Rian Johnson did what needed to be done. I think he did exactly what he wanted to do. In fact, he said as much in some interviews and everything. So I'm not a fan of The Last Jedi. Well, for a while after that, it was said that he was going to get his own trilogy of Star Wars films. Well, I very happily saw the other day that apparently those films have been canceled. So the only news I want to talk about is that I'm very happy that Rian Johnson will not be making another Star Wars film. I think that is good for Star Wars. I think it's good for Star Wars fans. I think it's good for movie fans. The Last Jedi just really is a standalone film in and of itself. It just does not connect to the trilogy that it's in. I don't think it connects to the overarching Star Wars franchise, the film, and everything. One of the reasons I'm not a fan of it is the overarching message that I got from it, and this is where I'll get a little theological on it. Is that we're going to take our traditions, the things of old, the lessons of old, the teachings of old, and everything that has been passed down and handed to us, and we're going to just throw it out the window. And we're going to forge our own path, and that's how we're going to go moving forward. There's a rejection of the Jedi teachings. Luke Skywalker becomes a grumpy old hermit, which, I hear the people saying that it was a bold move. It was a bold move to be able to do that with him, and it fits the storyline. No, it doesn't. That does not fit who Luke Skywalker was. In the movie universe, Luke Skywalker is one of my movie heroes. He never would have done that. Rian Johnson decided, I guess, just to go for shock value and make his own kind of fan fiction with this film. But throwing out the teachings of the Jedi, we don't need orthodoxy. We're gonna forge our own path and everything. And I didn't like that. For those of us who are Star Wars fans, the Jedi had their own problems that they needed to work through, but it's because they got away from the core of who they were and started serving other interests and everything, and that's why they fell. It wasn't because their teaching was inherently wrong. And, there seems to be a lot of parallel between that and the church today, that we're going to take the doctrine and theology that has been passed down to us for years and years and years, and we're going to add smoke machines and lighting and rock bands and everything, and because we got to, kind of spruce things up a little bit. So I kind of get that vibe with The Last Jedi and everything. So, yeah, I'm not a fan. So Ryan Johnson's not going to be making any more Star Wars. That's a great thing. That's a really good thing. So, but movies that are coming up. So one movie that's coming up, and I think we're going to go see it this week or next week. I'm going to take my family and see it. Is the new Zootopia movie. Now, I'm partly going out of morbid curiosity. And the reason I say that is this. I really enjoyed the first Zootopia movie. It was the first movie I ever took my son to go see in the movie theaters when he was young. So it was the first movie I got to take my son out to see and everything. And it was really good. It was really fun. And it could have gone really south really quick. It could have been woke as all get out. And maybe there's some woke aspects to it that maybe I'm just kind of missing, or maybe I'm showing some grace and kind of glossing over. But it was a fun movie. I think the voice acting was done very well. And really, it was a movie about maybe just don't be a jerk to people, which I don't have a problem with. We need to, especially us as Christians, we need to show grace and humility and kindness towards people, particularly people who hate us. We do need to show kindness in the face of opposition, in the face of persecution and everything. So not treating other people like dirt because they are different than us, or they're not, from a Christian standpoint, they're not believers. That is something I can fully get behind. I don't think the movie went over the top with it. Like I said, it could have gone woke as all get out. So it's coming out this week. It's coming out on the 26th, so it's going to be coming out in just a couple days. And my question is, are they going to ruin the good thing that they had going? Now, in recent history, Disney's still Disneying. There's still, of a very far left persuasion. They have pulled back on some of the more extreme things because there has been a lot of backlash against them, and I think rightfully so. They've taken story elements out of some of their movies and shows that would be pro-LGBT and stuff like that. So they've pulled back. I'm not saying they've had a change of heart. I don't believe for a minute they've had a change of heart, especially as long as Bob Iger is in charge. So, I'm not holding out hope that all of a sudden people won't boo when Trump's animatronic starts working up in the Hall of Presidents, So I'm not holding out for that. But my fear is that they're going to take what was good with the first movie and they're going to just run to the left with it. Apparently it hinges on that, I guess, reptiles, particularly in this case a snake, is not allowed in, I guess, civil society. And I didn't think about this. You don't really see any in the first movie, but there's no reptiles, there's no snakes. So there seems to be some kind of a stigma associated with them, and so they are kept on the fringes of society. They're cast out, ignored, and what have you. And, I see this in the trailer, so instantly my fear is, where are we going with this? What is the deeper message behind this? So, because if they kind of just do more of what they did in the first movie, I don't really see the need for a second movie. If they're going to continue the message of don't be a jerk to people, well, we already got that with the first movie. The second movie could just be, we see Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps, and they're doing their thing as cops and everything, and there's a new story and stuff, and that would be fun. But now we have a member of society that's an outcast and everything, and it makes me worried for it, So part of me is kind of going to go see this movie out of curiosity of whether or not they're going to ruin it, And I really hope they don't. I thought the first one was really fun. My kids enjoyed it. We actually rewatched it not that long ago. It's a fun movie. So I really, really hope that Disney doesn't do what it's been doing with stuff and ruin it. I'm thinking of their live action remakes. Let me be completely upfront. I will die on this hill that Disney needs to stop doing live action remakes of their animated not even classics, because now they're doing a live, they just did a live action. Well, Stitch, I guess, was a long time ago. I forget how old I am now. Moana didn't come out that terribly long ago, and they're already doing a live action for that. So I'm not going to say they're classic, their classic animated feature films and everything. But I'm dead set against Disney doing live action remakes of animated movies. They need to stop. The animated movies are good. They're classics. They just have to stop. I mean, I saw The Beauty and the Beast. That was not great. And it's funny because my family and I also just recently rewatched or watched for the first time the live action 101 Dalmatians, which I admit I actually enjoy. I'm a fan of Jeff Daniels, and I thought it was really good way back when it came out. Probably because I just didn't see on the horizon that they're going to keep doing this to these classic movies. And I don't know, maybe if they could have done them as well as they did 101 Dalmatians, maybe I wouldn't be a grumpy old man about it. But I'm just not a fan of these live action remakes. Lilo and Stitch that just came out, I hate that one the least out of all the live action remakes. But yeah, they need to stop. I know I'm going off on a different tangent from Zootopia, but Disney is just seems to be, for me and a lot of people, kind of having a track record of just ruining a good thing. When all we want is just, you had decades of making just original movies that were just good. There's a pattern. You could go back and do that again. We don't have to remake stuff and rehash it and everything and bring in the same cast every single time and redo this stuff. And yeah, so I'm really holding out hope. I really liked Zootopia. I hope they don't mess this one up. So I'll give you a little bit of a movie review, I guess, after we see it on next week's episode or the episode after that. We'll see. So, but another movie that's coming up, and this one I am very, very excited for, is, and I know this can be controversial now too, I don't know why, is Avatar: Fire and Ash. So the original Avatar came out in 2009, so we're talking a while ago now. So I saw Avatar while it was in theaters. I saw it 7 times when it was in theaters. The most I had ever gone to rewatch a movie was one of the Star Wars prequels. I think I went to see that 5 times in theaters. I can't remember which one it was. It was either episode 2 or episode 3. So I thought Avatar was mind-blowing. When I went and saw it, I was with one of my best friends. He's actually my co-host on my Star Wars podcast some years later. We saw it together when it premiered. And I distinctly remember we were in stunned silence at the end of the film. We stood up and we left the theater in silence, and we were looking at each other outside on the sidewalk, and we both kind of had the same conclusion of that this was the new Star Wars. This was 1977 all over again, in that it's going to change the way movies are made. It's going to change the way movies look and how they are experienced. I loved Avatar. Like I said, I saw it 7 times in theaters. I saw it in regular. I believe I saw it in IMAX. I saw it in real 3D. I tried to see it in every version that it had, and I thought it was phenomenal. I still think it's phenomenal. I prefer watching, much like Lord of the Rings, they have a director's extended cut that has some added scenes I think are great. I wish they would have that one on Disney Plus. I don't know why they don't. That's a bummer for me. But I thought Avatar was phenomenal. It was an amazing film. I don't get the hate that it gets. It was very, very good. I thought the acting was fantastic. I'm a big Sam Worthington fan. I'm a big Stephen Lang fan, who was Colonel Quaritch. I thought he made a fantastic villain. Big fan of Stephen Lang. I thought he was great. My buddy and I, we were quoting this movie like literal years after. We were still quoting this movie. And so I was really surprised. I heard back then that he had multiple films planned. And of course, years went by and went by and went by and nothing ever happened. It's like, well, darn, I guess we're never going to get him. And then Avatar: A Way of Water came out. And I was kind of worried that it had been so long. I wasn't worried that there wouldn't be interest in it. I was still going to go see it. I didn't need anyone to go see it with me. I was going to be worried that it was going to be very disconnected and it was going to be really different from the first one. And not in a new and inventive way, but it was going to just feel disconnected. And it was way better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was great. You get different Na'vi culture and everything. Of course, visually, it was still a stunning movie. We got to get Stephen Lang back, which was fantastic because he's just such a good villain and everything. Na'vi version of Quaritch, and it was really, really good. But I was still kind of worried. It's like, well, man, it took years to get this sequel. When's the next one coming? Well, sure enough, James Cameron's not disappointing, and Avatar: Fire and Ash is going to be coming out December 19th. So. Going to be another December movie. It still has the same cast and everything, but this one seems to be centered around. I know the joke is being made that he's ripping off Avatar: The Last Airbender because they did air, they did water, now they're doing fire, and there's going to be an earth one coming up. Okay, fine, whatever. But this one is dealing with Jake and Neytiri, and they're encountering a different tribe of like hostile Na'vi. So now it's not like all Na'vi actually are getting along. There's actually some Na'vi out there that don't like other ones, and these ones are actually allied with the bad guy Stephen Lang's character Quaritch, which is interesting. So I really can't wait to see what they do with that. Again, the trailer and everything looks stunning. I think the visuals are going to be amazing again. I can't wait to see where the story goes with this. I think it's going to be fantastic. Like I said, I'm a big Avatar fan, so I'm really, really looking forward to this. I know we spend time at Disney and at Animal Kingdom. They actually have Pandora. They have first time I saw it, it was unbelievable. They have the floating mountains and everything. You get to go on a ride where you ride one of the banshees, the Ikrans, and it was so. The ride was so amazing. I'll admit, I almost teared up. It was amazing. It looked real. It felt real. I think they did a wonderful job with it. I'm something of a cinephile, so when I kind of see movies come to life, it's a big deal for me. So I'm a geek like that. So I'm really excited to see this Avatar movie. I would commend to you to go check it out. If you've never seen Avatar, watch Avatar. If you like movies, why haven't you watched it? So. That would be my recommendation in December coming up. Also, another recommendation. I don't have this in my notes, but just something I was thinking about. Way back in the day, I was there, Gandalf, 3,000 years ago. When the Lord of the Rings films were coming out, they came out in December, and I distinctly remember them because I started dating my wife in December, and we went to go see one of the Lord of the Rings films, and I believe it was The Two Towers, and then we saw Return of the King in December there, so I have kind of a connection to Lord of the Rings there, but the Lord of the Rings films are just fantastic. I would also say, well, you're gathered with family during the holidays coming up, watch Lord of the Rings. And when I say watch Lord of the Rings, I mean properly. Get the extended editions. Don't get the theatrical versions. Watch the extended editions. Watch them as they were meant to be watched. And if you're feeling very adventurous, watch all the behind-the-scenes DVDs as well. There's 6 of those. I've watched through those probably 4 or 5 times. Like I said, I'm something of a cinephile. I love filmmaking. Love how films are made, and they were, for being basically more or less independent films, they're some of the greatest films that have ever been made. And if you got family, do a little bit of a marathon. Maybe don't do all 3. I mean, I might do that, but I wouldn't recommend it for the faint of heart. But you get such classic storytelling of good and evil with Lord of the Rings. Read the book. I mean, obviously I'm going to say read the book, but with the films, you see the struggle of good versus evil. You get that Campbellian, just visceral, innate storytelling that seems to run throughout culture. And it's told so very well in the book by Tolkien, but it's also brought to life very well by Peter Jackson in the films. And I think it does a person well to see these adventurous movies where good struggles against evil and eventually triumphs. I forget who it is that the quote belongs to when it comes to young people. It's like they don't need to be told that dragons exist. They know they exist. They need to be shown that they can be beaten. They can be defeated. Not too long ago, we watched through the Lord of the Rings with my kids, and my son really enjoyed them. I was very happy to see that. But there's lessons to be learned and nuggets of real-world truth in these stories. And I was going to read this quote on an earlier show, and I forgot. So this is as good a time as any. And I think this quote is relevant to the times that we are in. So Lord of the Rings drops nuggets of truth that I think we can use. Remember, we're if we're reformed, we love the good, the true, and the beautiful, and I would include the Lord of the Rings in this. But in the Two Towers, when Éomer confronts Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas in the Riddermark, and they're sort of interrogating the three members of the Fellowship, Éomer says, "It is hard to be sure of anything among so many marvels. The world is all grown strange. Elf and dwarf in company walk in our daily fields, and folk speak with the Lady of the Wood and yet live. And the sword comes back to war that was broken in the long ages ere the fathers of our fathers rode into the mark. How shall a man judge what to do in such times?" And Aragorn replies, as he has ever judged. Good and ill have not changed since yesteryear, nor are they one thing among elves and dwarves and another among men. It is a man's part to discern them as much in the golden wood as in his own house. I thought that was a wonderful thing, a wonderful example of someone looking at the times that we are in and despairing, wondering, what are we to do? How are we to know good from evil? Is there good and evil? And Aragorn says, nothing has changed. Good and evil is not different in one land and different in another land. We know what good and evil is, and we know what truth is basically what he's saying. So little nuggets of eternal truth that we see in storytelling from the master Tolkien himself. So gather around your family and friends, eat some turkey, some pumpkin pie, and watch Lord of the Rings, I think is a good suggestion. So this is going to be a shorter show. We're preparing for the holidays here and everything. So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter show. So I wanted to share one last thing, or a couple last things. And I was trying to think of what are some underrated movies that are out there. And there's a lot, but there's a few that I kind of think go below the radar. And one of them is still kind of a major film, so maybe it doesn't count, but I'm counting it because I think it got a bad rap. So just some underrated movies that maybe you want to check out. And we'll start with a couple family movies. And one of them is, admittedly, a Star Wars film. Now, Mike, how is a Star Wars film underrated? How is a Star Wars film a blockbuster that takes hundreds of millions of dollars to make and is marketed all over the place? How is that an underrated film that goes under the radar? Well, it's an underrated film that goes under the radar because Disney absolutely ruined the marketing for this film. And that's the movie Solo. It is a fun movie. I think the acting is fantastic in it. And the reason it falls under the radar is because Disney didn't market it until basically right before it came out. I think it got a really bad rap. It had production problems that Disney was constantly talking about rather than saying how everything was going well with the film. And it was eventually finished off by Ron Howard, fantastic director. I can see kind of hints of his style in the film. But Solo, a Star Wars story, follows young Han Solo, how he meets up with Chewbacca, how he gets into sort of the smuggling trade, how he gets the Millennium Falcon. It's a fun movie. It's a very fast-paced movie, and it's fun. It has a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. It doesn't have a great rating. It didn't make a lot of money for a Star Wars film. It didn't make a lot of money. It barely made more than it cost to make. And I think for that reason, it kind of stunted Disney from making other Star Wars films, for better or for worse, maybe for better, who knows. I know we have Mandalorian and Grogu coming out. I hope they don't ruin that. But it's just a fun movie. My kids liked it. It was a lot of fun. I think it gets a bad rap. I would really, really suggest to watch it. It's fun. It is adventurous. And it's Star Wars. It's just fun. So I would say if you haven't watched Solo, it's one of those in-between movies. They started doing these, they called them Star Wars stories. And there are movies that kind of in-between trilogies, which is where I lived when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I didn't have the prequels yet, and the original trilogy came out before I was born, so I lived in between movies. So I had books and comics and video games and stuff, so I lived in those in-between stories and stuff, and that's what this is. And I thought it was really good, so I'd say give it a chance. You get to see a young Han Solo and a young Lando banter back and forth. I mean, what's not to love about that? Another underrated film, and this is another hill I'm going to die on, and it's because it just came out at a bad time. It didn't have a chance, and that is Disney's Treasure Planet. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, even as a 40-year-old man now. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Disney took Treasure Island, classic story, classic tale, brought it into a, I'll say, pseudo-modern era, and I think hit an absolute home run. Treasure Planet takes place in outer space. They've changed the way space works. Space is actually something called the Ethereum, where there's solar winds that these ships sail on. Apparently you can breathe in space. That's part of the Ethereum thing. And they take the story of Long John Silver and Jim Hawkins and the race to find treasure, put it in outer space, and it's phenomenal. The visuals are amazing. Disney really experimented with mixing hand-drawn animation, which they've always been good at, with new three-dimensional computer animation, which was really coming into its own at that time. And the blend is amazing. The story is fantastic. The universe that they set it in was so unique. They could have made, if I remember correctly, they were planning on making other films and sequels and kind of building it as the universe, but it never worked out because the film bombed. I believe it bombed because it came out the same week as one of the Harry Potter films. It didn't have a chance. Not even Sorcerer's Stone. It was one of the later ones, so it had no chance in theaters. Maybe Disney should have delayed it. Maybe they should have had it come out earlier if they could have. I don't know. But Treasure Planet is one of the best Disney movies that has ever been made. Like I said, I will die on that hill. It's fun. It's swashbuckling pirates. The visually, it's amazing that they were able to do what they did at that time. We have these movies now, Marvel movies and everything that just look real and stunning for the most part. And what they're able to pull off with an animated film that far back, it was fantastic. So it falls under the radar. Go watch Treasure Planet. Interesting side note, it came out just before Lilo and Stitch. Stitch actually appears in the very beginning of the movie. Extra points to whoever knows where Stitch appears in the film. It's right there in the very beginning. But the one of the things I really enjoy in the film is the relationship between Silver and Jim Hawkins, and how Jim Hawkins is without a father. I can't remember how it was in the book, but in the film, his father leaves the family, and he's left at home with his mother, who's running the Benbow Inn, and so he doesn't have a father. And Silver, Long John Silver, fills that fatherly role while they're on the ship together, and which only adds to the betrayal when he finds out that Silver's actually just using the ship and the crew to be able to find the hidden treasure and everything. And just that dynamic between Jim Hawkins and John Silver is done so well in the film. There's some real heart-rending moments in there that still, even now, as I'm older, really, really, really touch me. I didn't have a father, so it kind of resonates with me. It was really, really good, really well done. So I would commend that movie to you as well as a underrated, not talked about movie very much. So for, I guess, more grown up audience, movies that are out there that I would recommend. The first one, and this is definitely, I think, falls under the category of cult classic, is a movie called Equilibrium. Now, may not have heard of it. Maybe you have. I had never heard of this movie until I was at one of my friend's house. Again, my friend that I did the podcast with, he showed me the cover of a DVD, and on it was Christian Bale, young Christian Bale, in the movie Equilibrium, and across the top, the tagline said, "Forget the Matrix." I'm like, you have my attention. So, and we watched the film. So it stars Christian Bale, and it is a futuristic dystopian film, which is right up my alley. I love those kinds of films like Blade Runner, things like that. Again, Blade Runner, another good movie that you should see. But in the future, it has been determined that the reason we have war, the reason we have murder and crime and chaos and disorder and anarchy is because, unfortunately, humans have emotions. So they have created a drug that you take multiple times a day through an injection in the neck, and basically it turns off your emotions. It makes you a dispassionate individual, and that way your drive is towards society and everything. And not only that, anything that can invoke emotion within you also has to be done away with. Music is gone, movies are gone, art is gone, color is gone. Everyone wears dark browns or blacks or grays. There's nothing vibrant in society. Everyone just gets up, goes to work, does their job, and goes home, and that's it. And there is a underground cell of people who rebel against this, who try to collect art. At one point in the very beginning of the movie, they find the Mona Lisa and they burn it. They destroy it because you can't have art. So this underground group of people has art and music and color and things of beauty. And to fight against this, the government has created a group of special law enforcers called the Tetragrammaton. Interesting name, right, brothers and sisters? And working from the halls of justice, and what they are called gun clerics. And these law enforcement agents are specially trained to be able to seek out and find where these people are hiding these works of art or these films and things. And their martial art is, you could call it gun fu. Like, they do martial arts with guns. I think that's why it says "Forget the Matrix," because the physicality in the movie is reminiscent of the Matrix, but I think very, very cool. And Christian Bale is one of these gun clerics that works for the Tetragrammaton, and he's slowly, I guess, recruited into trying to help these rebels because he realizes that humans should have emotions. And, he stops taking his dose and everything, and it goes on from there. But it's action-packed. I think the storyline is very good. It stars Christian Bale, who's fantastic. Angus McFadden, if you don't know him, I'm a big fan of him. Angus McFadden was Robert the Bruce in Braveheart. He's in this film as well. Braveheart, another great film. Go see that. So, got a lot to do before the end of the year, everybody. But just a really good film, really good action film. If you're looking for something that's very fast-paced, I would commend to you Equilibrium. Forget the Matrix. Man, I have not watched that in a long time. I think I might have to go watch that. So yeah, Equilibrium, good film. And the last one I want to talk about is, again, sort of obscure, did not do great at the movie theaters, unfortunately. Was planned to have sequels, didn't happen. If you're not familiar, there is a very long, I think it's somewhere around a dozen books, possibly, a novel series called the Aubrey Maturin series, and it follows two British fellows around the early 18th or early 19th century, I believe the late 18th century as well, so late 1700s, early 1800s, and it is Captain Jack Aubrey and his friend Dr. Maturin as they sail around serving in the British Royal Navy in various engagements and adventures and everything. And it came to the silver screen in the form of Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, starring Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany. And it is such a good movie. And I'm very interested to find out, Paul Washer actually talks about this film and how a father and son should see this film together, and I'll explain why. But they basically took two of the books. One of them was Master and Commander, the other was Far Side of the World, and they kind of combined the two stories to come up with a story for the movie. And it takes place during the Napoleonic Wars, and they're chasing a French man of war down around Cape Horn, around below South America into the Pacific Ocean, trying to chase it down so it doesn't destroy British shipping and everything as they fight against Napoleon. And while the books are a little tedious, I've been slowly slogging my way through them. They are really good. They can be a little tedious at times, but what the movie shows, and this is why I think dads, sit down with your young sons and watch this movie if you haven't already. It teaches and puts on display honor, discipline, bravery. You know, this was a time where in the Royal Navy, some of the officers were boys that were barely into their teens, and that these teens would be expected to stand on deck in the middle of a battle between two ships. And you have to remember, this was a time where two sailing vessels could quite literally come right up next to each other and just slog it out with cannons and small arms fire, and eventually come together and go into hand-to-hand combat. Bravery was expected. It was not something they hoped would come into play. Bravery, discipline, and honor were expected in that time. You could not shirk away from what was expected of you, from your duties in that time. And the movie is done very well. The battle sequences and everything, I think it's been called one of the most historically accurate war films that's ever been made, and I tend to agree. But for me, it's just this aspect of duty and discipline that we don't see in our society anymore these days. Nowadays, it's all for one and me for myself. You know, it's what do I get out of it? No, if it's hard, I'm not sacrificing anything for this. You guys can go on. This just isn't my cup of tea. And this movie shows us a world that in many ways does not exist anymore, not simply because we're removed from it by a couple centuries. Societally and religiously, we're very far removed from it. Honor is not a thing in society today. It's a word you very rarely ever hear, honestly. People don't use the word honor anymore. They don't use the word shame anymore. Shame would be when these two ships come up against each other, someone runs below deck and hides. That was not something that was going to happen. Of course it happened. We understand those things happen. But society looked down on that at one point in time. So we live in a time where we don't really believe in honor and shame anymore. Cowardice is not a thing because no one is expected to act bravely anymore. In fact, when people act bravely, it's newsworthy at this point. When someone is assaulted and a bystander steps in and stops the assault, stops the perpetrator, it makes news because bravery is just absent from our culture these days. And I think this movie should be should be required watching for fathers and sons. I'm going to be watching it with my son. I've watched this movie. I'm such a fan of this movie. I've literally watched it, and as soon as it hits the end credits, I've started it over again. It's a compelling story. The friendship also, speaking to men, the friendship between Aubrey and Matron in this, it shows brotherhood that can exist between two men that are not related. You know, they have become brothers not only because of wartime, but just because of their bonds of friendship. And you really get that in the books as well. That's fleshed out a lot in the books, a lot more than you can do in just this movie. But the show of the bond of friendship and love that two men can have as friends. So I would really recommend Master and Commander to you if you have not seen it. Russell Crowe, fantastic actor. I mean, how can you not love Russell Crowe? But the movie just didn't have a lot of traction in theaters, and it has in later years in the DVD and streaming services. So I count it as sort of underrated and underappreciated. So I would highly recommend that you watch that. So we're only about 45 minutes in, but I think I'm going to call it on this episode. I've had a lot of fun talking about these movies. I would really encourage you to see these ones. I think there's value in watching Master and Commander. There's value in watching Lord of the Rings, I believe. I think there's something to it. And if you just like good storytelling, go see these movies. Go see Treasure Planet. Great storytelling. It's fun. Family can enjoy it. If you like action, go see Avatar. I'm going to be there. Maybe not 7 times like last time. I don't have cash to burn these days. So, but get with the family. Go out there. We're trying to find a drive-in movie theater. I haven't been to one in years, but it's an experience. It was fun the last time I did it, and it's something that people today, they just don't know what that is. Sometimes calling back to the past, bringing that nostalgic feel back, is a good thing for a family to do. So maybe go see if you have a drive-in theater around, and you can go see some of these movies or see what's out there. So thank you for tuning in to this very different episode of Reformed Out Loud. But if you remember way back in episode 1, I said we would be touching on stuff that's just fun. So pop culture, video games, movies, things like that. I still have lots of fun with those things. So we'll do it again sometime soon. But like I said, we're moving into the holidays and we've had some really heavy stuff. So I just wanted to have some fun with this episode. So thank you for listening this week. If you have any opinions about these movies or suggestions of other movies, movies that you think a Christian should watch that really gets the wheels turning, or as a commentary on something, let me know. Put it in the comments. Put it on. We're all over social media. Leave a comment. We can talk about it on next week's episode. I have been getting some feedback from some of you and some topics and stuff. I'm going to be getting those lined up for future episodes. So you have not reached out to me in vain. Don't worry. I'll be getting to those things in future episodes. So with that said, again, thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe. Help get the word out. And like I said, this is Thanksgiving week. I pray that the Lord would bless you with a wonderful, safe time with family and friends on this coming Thanksgiving. So God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. God bless.